guys, this is Qazi. Welcome to another amazing tutorial. This one, it kind of upsets me a little bit and makes me want to hate Tarantino because we're going to be creating a look from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And we're going to be breaking some rules. Let's look at the tech specs so you can see what I'm talking about. So this film is actually shot with film cameras, specifically with Reflex 435 and Panavision Millennium XL2. And the negative that they used for their present time in the movie were two different stocks. So Kodak Vision 3 200T 5213 and Vision 3 500T 5219. And the shot that we're working on is using the 5219. I know, you don't have to say it. Look at this. I just dropped a freaking merch and now I gotta do this. That's why I said I hate Tarantino. The thing is, when you're creating a look, the reason why I say you have to spend a lot of time doing your research and figuring out how it was done is because if I create this look without using the film emulation LUT, we're gonna be missing that DNA, we're gonna be missing that mark, and it's just not gonna be right. So you have to stay true to really get the essence down. And we're just gonna have to do it. Guys, if you wanna take your color grading game to the next level, make sure to check the link in the description below. 1 hour long training that's gonna take you from not knowing anything about Resolve all the way to grading your first professional gig. And guys, if you wanna see more content like this, then make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to my channel for more awesomeness, follow me on Instagram, I post there every single day. Let's roll the intro. All right, so we already saw in the technical specs that there's some really exciting things that are going on, and the techniques that I'm going to be using in this one is very, very different than the tutorials that you have seen in this series. So first off, let's start off with our color palette. So I'm going to type in PAL, and then I'm going to drop in my color palette from the OFX, and then let's make it big so we can analyze what's really happening in this shot. And majority of the shot is sitting in this mid deep browns, like we can see it right here. And even our highlights are more off-white than pure whites, and we can see that here. So just remember, this is what's giving us the vintage feel. This is the essence of the 5219 Vision 3 Kodak negative that they're using. And that's the signature look of the film emulation used on this. But the real sauce here is how much saturation we see in the skin tones. And if you recall anything from this era, 80s, 70s, like if you remember the movies from that time period, there's tons and tons of saturation in the image. They successfully were able to recreate that. Now, let me bring in my scopes and let's see the color story through our scopes. So let me just break it down, the essence of this particular film emulation, and it's this. Look at the lifted reds on the top and look at the lifted reds on the bottom. It's almost like a staircase, right? Going that way. And just look at the saturation in his skin, how far it's going. I mean, this is freaking pushed. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind is having an image that's more than 8-bit, maybe 10-bit and on, could be very beneficial to recreate something like that. When we look at the crushed blacks, that's what was going on back in the day. The contrasts were really, really pushed, and they're doing that here. Like if you just look at the bottom, I mean, they're touching zero. You can see that here on the histogram too. So that's about it. Let's get into our shot and let me show you what we're working with and how it's different in its DNA, the way it was shot compared to what we have here. So first of all, when you look at this image, there's way too much light on them, almost like a spotlight on them, and then the rest of the image, and that's not what's happening here. This image is pretty evenly lit. I mean, I would go as far as saying this is the brightest part of this image, so it's not even him. But what separates him from that is the contrast that they're creating through the light and also the saturation that we see in his skin tone. And, you know, the focus is on him, not on here. Like we got shallow depth of field going on. But here, there's going to be some jiggery pokery we have to do to get in the ballpark since they are just sitting like pretty hot. It's going to be challenging to get their skins in the right ballpark because it's just not shot alike at all. All right, let's jump right in. So I'm going to start off with my signature node tree, but we're going to be switching it up a little bit. Okay, so the first one is noise reduction. Let's leave it at that. The second one is going to be my primaries, and that's where I'm just going to do pure exposure. And then the third one, that's where we're going to introduce the LUT. Yes, I know you're probably thinking, what the hell, man? Your shtick is no LUTs given. This one, that's why I always tell you I spend more time reading the tech specs than actually the recreation of the look. And because you can find some vital information, and you're going to see without this LUT, it will always be missing the mark. So we're going to be using a 5219 Vision 3 LUT by Impulse. They sell packs, and obviously they're not sponsoring the video or whatever. I just happen to be using their products for a while. And let's just leave that and go back here. Then what we're going to be doing is this is going to become part of our look node tree. So I'm going to go ahead, create a parallel node. This is where I'm going to select my skin tones. And if I were to do this step after the LUT, it's going to be crummy. It's going to be really hard to pull clean key. So that's why I'm doing it as a parallel node to my LUT. Just an FYI, this is a pro tip. Then we're going to go ahead, create another one. And this one, I'm going to select my tablecloth and try to match it to what's going on here. Then we're going to go ahead, and this is where we're going to add our saturation to the image. Then I'm going to go ahead and fine tune our contrast to dial everything in. This is going to be my look adjustment. And down here is going to be my vignette. Then we're going to have our global adjustment where we're going to fine tune the entire image. And we're going to add our sharpening, and we're going to have our grain. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to start naming them. Noise reduction, exposure, LUT, skin, table, sat, fine tune, exposure, look adjustment, vignette, global adjustment, sharpen, we have grain. All right, time to get started. I'm gonna go click right here into my split screen mode, and I'm gonna select selected still images. And the image I've selected is obviously from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. One thing that I wanna do before I actually get into that is go under timeline, output blanking, and I wanna set it to 239 because that's what's being used here, right? So that just, it's not for the cinematic reasons or anything. It's just staying true to what we're trying to create so we don't get distracted. Okay, that said, let's go back into our split screen view, and let me pull up my scopes. I'm going to bring them down here, and let's start dialing in our contrast. I'm going to start with the contrast and then use my primaries and go from there. Something like that for now. You know what I want to do is push everything to the side like that. Maybe something like that. So at least we can see all our nodes. And then I want to make this bigger so we can see a little bit better. All right, so now I want to take my gain. I want to pull it down. And let's just keep an eye on the scopes too, right? So we're trying to stay in the same world. So just focusing on that, I'm going to keep it somewhere around here for now. That's fine. Actually, I'm even going to bring it down, and then I'm going to raise my gamma because if you see, there's a lot of detail in the midtones. So I'm going to bring that up because I'm trying to make it less spotty how it was shot. So we're trying to fiddle with that to change the nature of the way it was actually lit. I'm going to take my lift. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit, not too much. I'm going to raise my, I'm going to keep my gamma around here somewhere. I'm gonna keep my lift there, raise my gain a little bit more, keep it somewhere around here for now. That's okay. Now let's move on to our LUT, and I'm gonna go under my LUTs. I'm going under Impulse. That's the LUT that I'm using. Then I'm going under Rec 709 because I've already adjusted my image. So I'm using a LUT not for log, but Rec 709 where it's already been worked on and in the ballpark. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna select their Vision 3 500T 5219 negative. That's the one I'm going to select from Kodak. I'm going to apply it, and you might go, well, that's not changing much. But you're about to see once I start injecting saturation into my image, how much it's actually doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to these two nodes. Let's move on to our saturation, start cranking our saturation, and like really, I'm going to jack it up. I'm going to go like as far as like 95-ish. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my fine tune exposure. And what I want to do is I want to bring my blacks down. Okay. I'm focusing right here right now. So I'm going to bring, like you see my scopes, I want to bring my blacks down to kind of match what's happening here in this image. So I'm going to go under my log. I'm going to take my low range. I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to keep it around 20. And then I'm going to go down. Like I'm going to pull it down quite a bit, raise it a little bit. And now one thing that's happening is that I have to balance my image a little bit to get even closer because there's just a bit too much red right now. And don't worry about it. We're going to get there. We're going to fix everything. So let's make some adjustments. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start with my lift. I'm going to pull it down a little bit just to make even the blacks are looking here, which are pretty neutral. So I'm going to keep it somewhere around here. And then what I want to do is I want to go into my gain and I want to take it a little bit towards that warm tones, just a little bit, not too much. Then I want to take my gamma and I want to pull it down a little bit, not too much again. I want to pull it, I want to put it somewhere around here. And if we see, like just as a DNA, like we see that something is happening, we're getting somewhere in the ballpark. One thing that I do want to keep in mind is look at what's happening in the Once Upon a Time image, our reds, greens, blues, whereas my greens are higher than my reds. So let's fix that. So I'm going to do somewhat like this. Then I'm going to, and I just use my gain. Now I'm going to go to my gamma and I'm going to counter that. So bring it somewhere around here. Then I'm going to go back to my lift and adjust it just a tiny bit. Then I want to go back to my fine tune exposure. I want to go into my log and I want to pull it down even more, just a little bit. And now if I look at my black points right here, they're very close to my black points right here. Okay, so this is looking really freaking good. There's ways to go to get in the ballpark, but let me just go in the LUT node, turn it on and off and show you what I mean, what this LUT is really doing for us. So like this is without the LUT, this is with the LUT, and you see how these colors that are coming in, that's exactly what's happening. Just look at the wood paneling there to here, how we're getting in that ballpark. You cannot do that. And even like look at his jacket and look at their jackets. And like we're in that ballpark. We're getting those deep, pure, neutral blacks that look so nice and give it like a film touch. So it's happening now. And that character is near impossible to create without using film emulation. That's why it's very important to look at the tech specs to see what kind of look you're creating and how can you successfully achieve that. Now I'm going into my skin, and this is where majority of the magic is going to happen. So let's go ahead and select it. It's doing a really good job. It's so clean. And then what I want to do is move it around and see how I can just grab more of it. I don't want to grab his jacket though. And then I want to go into my feather and then just take it and go over this area right here. And that's okay if we grab a little bit of the hair and stuff. That's totally fine. Then I want to give it blur. Always just blur the hell out of it. Like you will never regret it. Okay, if you want cleaner keys, always use blur. And just remember, we're using a parallel node. We're not using a layer mixer because layer mixer is going to give away the magic. Here, we're going to use parallel node so everything blends in. I'm going to make this bigger so you guys can see what's happening. I'm going to start off with my gamma right here. I'm really going to freaking push it to get in that world. Okay, so just watch this. Okay, so I mean, we really freaking pushed it. Now, one thing that I want to do is I'm going to go under my gain and I'm going to pull it down a little bit. Like to take the edge off. I'm going to take my gamma, do the same thing. Then I'm going to take my lift and do the same thing. Just pull it down a little bit to create that contrast. Take my lift, raise it a little bit. Okay. Another area that I do want to grab is her lips because I think that's kind of important. So I'm going to go back there. I'm going to punch in and I'm going to select my qualifier and I'm going to try it. Let's see. Okay. Okay, this is way better. Now let's pull these two next to each other, make it bigger. Now let's add a little bit more magenta into it. So I'm going to go into my gamma and just kind of slide it up. Not too much though. Okay, let's park it somewhere around here. Let's go ahead, work on our table, and then we're gonna fine tune their skin a little bit more. But I mean, if I go to their skin and turn it on and off, you see what's happening. And that's after the challenge that we were dealing with, like how they're flooded with light. There's so much light on them. So it makes them desaturated. And to pull color out and then take it in this world, there's too many different variables that we're dealing with. But I think we are getting really freaking close without making it look too cheap or weird. I mean, we're just like, we're in that world. We're in that ballpark. So I'm going to go into my table. That's up to you what you want to do with it, but obviously we're trying to create that look, so we're going to get as close as possible, but you absolutely can leave it there and it looks nice and has this warmth and inviting feeling. So you can really leave it there, but if you want to push it, let's do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my luminance. Luminance gives you the cleanest key. So always remember that. I'm going to hit Shift H so we can just focus on what we're grabbing. And I'm going to come right here. Then what I want to do is I only want to grab this. I don't want to grab their skin. So there's two things that we can do. I'm going to take my saturation and I'm going to start bringing it back until I start getting rid of their face and only focus on right here, the table. So that's one. And now we can give it some blur. Another thing that we're going to do to tackle this is we're only going to use in our log wheels, our highlights. So then that way it's not going to go there anyways because we're doing a very control fine-tune adjustment. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go into my log wheels in my highlights and then I'm going to start. Now we have two choices, right, to make. Where do we want to take this table? Do we want to make it look like this? Do we want to make it look like that? Super clean. So let me just go and make it look clean. Honestly, I like that because I feel like the scene is just so warm to begin with that to create a color contrast is not a bad thing. Let's try to fix our key. So I'm jumping back and forth, but this is how you're going to be detecting problems and fixing them. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to try to fix what's happening, the chatter that's happening with our key here. So let's clean it up. Let's see. Okay, that is way, way, way better. It took care of all of that. It literally took care of all of that. So that's great. Now let's go back. And yes, so if you see how much we changed, but then his shirt, we're not changing it too much. We're cleaning it up. It's almost like a clean white. We cleaned up his shirt and separated it from the background. But let's just say if you're saying, this is good, but I don't want to affect his shirt at all, then in that case, you're going to create a window. You're going to put it right here and something like that. You're going to blend it in a little bit and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to track it. So track forward, track backward. And that's going to take care of that. But once again, like I said, I am not a huge fan of this because that just creates more work for you. If it's just few shots and it doesn't matter, you can do it. Absolutely go ahead, do it. I liked how it cleaned up his shirt. But if you want different variations, just to keep it really cool, like how they're doing it, like they could have just made this table the same as that, but they're just adding more character. So if you're going for that, let's leave it in. So now we got our shirt one color, our table another color, and we're just trying to create a really nice, interesting image by creating all this contrast. To be honest with you, I don't think we're going to be needing a vignette because our guys are already popping out so much from the background. So I'm going to leave this node as is. I'm going to go into my global adjustment, and what I'm going to do is I want to just get some of the sting out. So I'm going to do that by taking my gain and pulling it down. Not too much, just a little bit. Something like that. And then let's see what else do we have to do to like really, really get in the ballpark. So let me take my gamma and bring it down a little bit. I'm bringing my gain down. I think we're good on saturation, to be honest, in the skin, because that's this image and then that's our image. We're right there. And then Leo is more tan than them. So also remember that. Like, I mean, make the changes as much as you can until it's realistic. Like, as soon as you start compromising your image and it starts going somewhere else completely, that's where you got to hit the brakes. So I'm going to raise my gamma. And then I'm going to pull my gain down. Okay, let's see. Let's put these two next to each other. And then one thing that I do want to do is I'm going to go into my log. I'm going to raise my reds. So let's make this bigger. I'm going to undo it and then see what it's doing. I actually really like what it's doing because now if we see, it's very close to what's happening in this image. I mean, just look at the reds, look at the greens, look at the blues, look at my reds, my greens, my blues. Okay. All right. Let me go under here and do one more thing. So I'm going to go under my RGB curves. I'm going to select this and I'm going to grab it from the middle and I'm going to pull this down. Don't freak out. We're going to be fine because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under my gain and I'm going to reset that. And then I'm going to go back in my curves and I'm going to pull it down even more. Now I'm going to go into my log wheels and grab my highlights and pull it down a little bit. Okay, so you see what it did? Like, it's a different technique, but a very important one because it just saturated the image so much more, yet put us in this world way more. So now what I want to do is go back to our skin, revisit it a little bit, and I want to go in here. I want to take my gamma and take it a bit more on the orange side. Like something like that. I mean, look at this, right? This is right here, that image to the right side. This is us. Just look at how we're in the same freaking world. We took the table, we took it in this world, like right here in that world. If it's too blue for you, we can go back in there, go into my log and add a little bit more green. Like if we really want to exaggerate it to how what we see in the back, like right there, we can do that too. But what you got to look at is the top. So now I'm looking at the top and it's like, that's what I got going on. This is before, this is after. So we created that separation. One thing that I noticed, like all this noise, you know how I feel about noise. I mean, the gunk is the worst thing in the world. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go right there. 3, keep it around 4.8-ish. I'm going to type it in, 4.8. I'm going to uncheck this link, and then let's just affect the chroma values only. We're going to keep it around 6.8, and that cleans it up. You can see it right here. And even if I move it like that, is gone. But the biggest inherent difference between these two shots is how sharp this is compared to my shot. And to bring that sharpness, obviously in our sharpening, we're going to go right here, and we're going to pull it down to 47-ish. And now for my favorite thing. So we're going to go into our effects, and obviously when you're creating a film emulation, it will never be complete unless you have a film grain. So let's try a 35-400T, since 5219 Vision 3 by Kodak is a 35mm negative. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to raise that up quite a bit, my strength, and I'm going to bring this down to around 7, somewhere around here. I think we're there, and I think it looks pretty freaking phenomenal, even if we put it next to each other and you just look at it. And now let's turn off all my nodes, and then I'm going to go one by one and see where we started, where we ended up. I'm going to move this over a little bit, bring it right here, move it over even more, bring it right here, make this bigger, and let's start with our exposure. That was the first thing that I did. Then I moved on and dropped in my LUT. Didn't look like it was doing much when we dropped it in. I went ahead and moved on to my saturation, and that's where my node tree got modified than what's been done in the past. And I added saturation. We cranked it quite a bit. Then I did fine-tune exposure adjustments to like really get in this world that we see here, but there was a missing piece, which was the look adjustment. So we had to balance our image first, and then that did that, just got everything somewhat similar in this world. And then the biggest differentiator in this one, the actual sauce, was the skin tones. And we had to push it to an uncomfortable level. Like if you don't have a reference like this, that's why showing you these looks is so important, is because it gives you the permission. If you don't have this image and if you're creating your own image, you will never push it this far. But like once you have an actual image to go back to, then it's easy because you know that it's going to look this good at the end. Then we went ahead and we worked on our table and give it this nice cool feel to just separate it from our overall image, because there's so many warm tones happening. To have some separation is really nice. Then we went ahead and we didn't do anything to our vignette, because obviously there's tons and tons of that happening already in our image. Then I went ahead and did some global adjustment, and look at the difference. Okay, look at the skins, how they're just looking flat, and how his skin is so saturated and blending into the shot. And by doing that, we were able to take everything into this world. I mean, it makes all the difference in the world. And then we went ahead, added sharpening, and then I added noise reduction because there was a lot of gunk that was happening here. And finally, we added the grain to finish it off. Let's check out our final look in full screen. I hope you guys had a blast, and told you before we even got into creating this look that there's gonna be some jiggery pokery. I even had to break some rules. I mean, using a LUT, are you freaking kidding? Look at this. So, but we just had to stay true, so I had to do it. Drop a comment below, let me know which look should I do next. Hit a thumbs up. If you wanna see more content like this, guys, really smash that like button. Subscribe to my channel, share this with friends, and make sure to check out the link in the description for the free training. I will see you guys in the next video.